Well, hello and welcome back to the Chap's Guide, the channel where we talk about men's style, grooming and self-development. And within grooming, of course, a really big element of men's personal grooming is fragrance, aftershaves, colognes, whatever you call it. That thing which allows you to put a little bit of your personality across to the people that you meet through their olfactory senses. And I make no apologies of late. I've really been delving back in the fragrance archives of my life and revisiting many of the fragrances I remember when I was growing up in the late 80s, the early 90s, and even to a degree the noughties, where I was encountering many of the fragrances I've recently reviewed. But probably the one which goes back the furthest is the one that joins me today, and that is Mandate by Eden, which has been around now for quite some time. It was first launched in 1976, and this is how the public would have been presented with this fragrance in the advertisements of the time.
Sensual, long-lasting mandate. Worn by men, loved by women.
There we go. Worn by men, loved by women. What a fantastic tagline. Perhaps we wouldn't market things in quite the same way today, but I've been around this fragrance from a very young age. It was, it occupied the middle of the fragrance market in the UK when I was growing up, and I would have worn this from a very young age. I wasn't in any way versed in knowledge around fragrance and colognes back then. I just wore things that I liked the smell of, or that my father would have worn, which I could have hijacked from his cologne cabinet. But here's Mandate, and Mandate has got a bit of an interesting story which is worth reflecting on. Now, Mandate originates from the House of Schulten, which was created by a chap called William Schultz in 1937. And over time, and importantly actually, the House of Schulten also brought us Old Spice, that most classic, that most democratizing of fragrances, which I think every man, boy, adolescent has had in their collection or worn at some point or another. It's been the gateway drug into fragrance for so many people, and it originated in the same house as Mandate. So, as I say, created that house in 1937, and it changed hands many times over the years. So House of Schulten has been bought and sold. It was bought by American Cyanamid. It was bought by the giant Procter & Gamble, and at one point it has shared its stable in the fragrance part of that business under Procter & Gamble and Cyanamid, of other fragrances like Blue Stratos, Insignia, Rapport, all kind of middle market stuff which have certainly would have been on sale in Britain at that time. Depending on where you are in the world, you may be familiar with those names as well. But Mandate bounced around a bit, and it's important to say that because when a fragrance moves from ownership to ownership, quite often the manufacturing facilities will change and there will be reformulation of the fragrance. Undoubtedly, this has been reformulated many times, but it's exactly as I remember it. As a younger chap, I've worn this. This has pretty much been the most consistent presence in my fragrance collection over my adult life. And I still remember it smelling the same today. This most recent bottle I bought about 4 months ago, I bought when the last one was empty, because I keep buying them as they wear out, and I've had them year after year. They still smell the same. So I can say with absolute confidence that this fragrance has stood the test of time, and it still smells like the Mandate I remember from the 80s, from the 90s, and so on and so forth. So what's important about Mandate? What do I like about it? Well, let's start by smelling it, shall we? That most important factor of fragrance, what it smells like. So let's give it a little squirt. This is the Eau de Toilette. It's also available in aftershave version, but I'll just spray it on the back of my hand, couple of squirts, and we'll let that sit there, and I will drink in the elixir, the fragrance, to tell you what I think. Oh yeah. Well, after, obviously when you first put it on, there's going to be a hint of alcohol, and I would allow it to cook it off before I give you an accurate reference to it. But of course, I've been wearing this stuff for decades, so I can tell you that the sort of the head notes, the top notes of this fragrance are very much bergamot, and they're lavender. And I'm told there's an element of rosemary in there as well, which is about true. The bergamot, obviously a member of the citrus family, gives an element of sharpness, an element of zestiness, and that lavender, the comforting, one of my most favourite fragrances in the world, lavender, comforting, pleasant, reassuring, the rosemary giving it that florality as well. So that's what you get initially. And that's definitely there, that's definitely there. When it cooks off a little bit, it goes into its mid notes, and that's again, bit of geranium, bit of pine, bit of greenness in there as well, bit of cinnamon, bit of warmth again, bit of comfort, definitely detectable. And then it comes into its own when it cooks off, and it goes into its base notes after a little while, after those initial entry fragrances have drifted away, and you get cedarwood, absolutely one of my favourite elements of men's fragrances, and also there's definitely a muskiness and an oak moss to it, so a manly fragrance without a doubt. Starts with a bit of citrus and delves down into a musky, woody, masculine fragrance, so it's perfect if you like the smell of a man. How I would describe it in reality, taking aside all of those accords, would be it is a slightly soapy, slightly pleasant, fresh, clean smelling gentleman's barbershop fragrance. That's what it reminds me of, a classic man's fragrance of that era. It just makes me think of clean cut, well shaven men who dress smartly with, you know, well looked after hair, who shave, and this would be their sort of fragrance that they use to impart that element of their personality in their fragrance. When would I wear this throughout the year though? Well, like many fragrances, they have certain times of the year where they work better than others, and for me this would be a spring-autumn fragrance. It's a little bit too heavy for the summertime, where slightly more zesty, clean smelling fragrances would be favoured, but it's not heavy enough for the winter, where I would look for much more musky powerhouse fragrances. This occupies the middle ground for me, so it's perfect now. It's September, it's autumn in the UK, September, October time, perfect for this. Still warm, it's warm enough to sit outdoors without wearing a jumper or anything, so I would definitely go for Mandate. Although, to be honest, you could wear it any time of the year. It's got that inoffensiveness that could carry in any situation. I would say it's a daytime fragrance though, because it doesn't have the punch that I would wear out in an evening if I was going out in the evening, say to a social function in a public house or the opera. It's not something I would wear for that. It doesn't have the power, but it's something you could wear in the daytime. It's certainly office appropriate. You could wear this all day, nobody would take offence to it. If you were stuck in an elevator with somebody, you won't find people coughing and gagging. It doesn't have that power. More often they'd probably think you smell clean and pleasant if they smell this. Its radiation, its projection, not too bad. I would say moderate. It doesn't hang over you in a fug of fumes. It doesn't do that. It's just pleasant. You catch a whiff of this as somebody walks past you perhaps, and you would just think, that's quite nice, quite a clean smelling chap. No more than that, so not too bad. It's not a fragrance on that basis that I would wear to a special occasion. If I was going out to a birthday party and I wanted a fragrance that would boost me up, that would make me feel strong and powerful, I would not say that Mandate has that punch. It's the middle ground. It's the thing that you wear when you don't want to stand out from the crowd. So it's not an occasion fragrance, but it is most definitely masculine. It's not feminine at all. It's by no means could be misconstrued as a unisex fragrance. This is something which has got muskiness. It's got woodiness. It's got that citrus zest within it. It's masculine. It is manly, and there's no doubt about that. How long does it last? What's its longevity like? I would say it's moderate. What I haven't told you yet is the cost of this, and if I told you the cost right now, you would expect this to be a weak, powerless fragrance which doesn't last very long. Actually, it punches way above its financial cost, and it has quite a moderate longevity once you put it on the skin. 4 hours, 5 hours later, you can still detect this after you've applied it. Not an all-day one, but it certainly is going to give you at least half-day coverage when you apply this in the morning. So it's gonna work out well for you. The bottle, what does it look like? Well, there it is. This is a simple, inexpensive looking square bottle. To my mind, it's hardly changed in the years that I've known Mandate. It's got a cheap plastic cover on top, and it is a fairly decent atomizer, as you can see. Gives you a good squirt, good coverage in this eau de toilette form. So not a bad little bottle. Its general marketing, here's the box that it comes in. It's a brown box. Brown, never a good colour in marketing, in my opinion, but brown with golden accents on it, picking out the Mandate, and the box gives the kind of suggestion of leather perhaps, but Nothing special, slightly reminiscent of perhaps tobacco and aromas in its coloration and those gold accents, but yeah, it doesn't look anything special actually to look at, and you know, that's the way it's been all of its life. I think for the last 10 years at least I've had the same bottle every time I've bought this, so you know, nothing special in the marketing and its appearance, so you know, it's not going to knock your socks off in that front. What else can I tell you? Well, there are quite a few other things in the range. As I say, there's eau de toilette, there's aftershave splash, there's body wash, there's deodorant spray. In its time, if I remember right, in the 70s and 80s, its heyday, you could pretty much buy anything which had a mandate sort of moniker on it. I think it's probably retracted somewhat, you know, it's got smaller now, and I think very few people would be going out trying to seek out the deodorants and the body washes, but the eau de toilettes and the aftershaves would probably be where you'd be. Comments that I receive from other people, generally by and large it's not noticed by other people. It doesn't have that sort of offensive punch that you expect these days in men's fragrance, because it's that background fragrance, that pleasant, fresh smelling fragrance. People may not even be aware that you're wearing an aftershave or a cologne with this. They just know you smell good, and that's kind of its appeal for me. It's that fragrance that you wear when you don't want to announce yourself in the room. When I've sought comments, particularly in preparation for this interview, you know, my wife and, for instance, people like that, my son, everybody without exception has said smells good. Nothing special, nothing bad. That's kind of where this sits in the world. But its strength is the value, without a doubt. I bought this 100 milliliter bottle of Mandate from Eau de Toilette from Amazon, and if I remember rightly, it cost in the region of £10. It actually comes in a 50 milliliter bottle as well, which can be sourced for as little as £5. So really, really inexpensive, and I think a terribly overlooked fragrance. For the amount of money, it is criminal that more people don't wear Mandate. And if you were to say to people in the UK, you know, I'm wearing Mandate, they would think you're a bit crass, a bit probably behind the times and with little taste, but in reality it's a great smelling fragrance, and I have an extensive fragrance collection. But there are days where I just feel like wearing Mandate, and for those days it's in my cologne collection and it'll always be there. And I tell you what, I will buy it all day long for £10. It is a bargain. So much so that I'm more than happy to put a link in the drop down box below in the description box where you can source your own bottle of Mandate for a tenner from Amazon. In case you have trouble finding it, it's there. Click on that, take you straight there. And you know, it's not often I endorse things with that level of gusto, but I do love Mandate. So in summary, and if you haven't already worked it out, I'm a big fan of Mandate, particularly at its price point and the place it occupies in my collection. That sort of shoulder season, autumn, spring, pleasing masculine fragrance. You can't go far wrong with this stuff for the price as well. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed this review of Mandate today, despite the dogs barking. If you have, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so that you join us here at the Chaps Guide and don't miss any of our future material. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon, hopefully smelling fresh and great. And until then, take care of yourselves and your family. See you soon.